Hey there guys, this is Rainbow Plasma. I hope you enjoy our interview with CosmicUnicorn coming up in just a moment. But before we start, I'd like to point out Pinky Dash's audio has been having some issues the last, it's been an issue for a long time, but over the last 4 or 5 weeks or so, there's been a real big issue with it. And we've been looking into it, and I think I found the problem this week. There's some electrical interference with his mic, meaning that when we noise removal to get rid of the background noise, it's cutting out a lot of his audio quality. So we're looking into that, and we don't have a solution right now, but hopefully by next week we will be able to have his audio up and better. And if not next week, then guaranteed the week after that. So there's that. So you won't be hearing from him a lot, and when you do hear from him, it'll be pretty bad audio. Also, he was having some issues with the internet connection. I believe there's some sort of big storm going on down where he was, so there was some issues with that, so you won't hear much of Pinky Dash this episode, but hopefully next week or the week after we can figure out a new microphone, get that situation sorted out, and then we'll have him in much crisper, clearer audio, because it's strange, when we're on like a Skype call, we hear him perfectly fine, but when it comes out in his audio form, it sounds quite bad. So hopefully we'll get it up to a level where you guys are hearing what we're actually hearing, and he'll be able to be a bigger part of the podcast, because when he has such bad audio, it's kind of hard to edit him into places. Anyways, hopefully that'll happen in the next few weeks. I hope you guys enjoy the interview. It was a lot of fun to make, and I hope you guys find some fun, insightful things in it. Hello and welcome to episode 31 of the Cutie Art Crusaders for January 29th, 2013. Welcome back, guys. I hope you enjoyed last week's episode, and my name is Rainbow Plasma, and today I'm joined by my co-hosts.
Burnda1, and I'm the special guest coordinator.
I'm FlutterGuy317, and I'm the art coordinator.
I'm Pinky Dash. I do all the questions and whatnot, miscellaneous junk.
So,
Stuff.
Pinky Dash is having some audio issues. I think his internet's not doing so great. So if he doesn't pop in this episode, then that's the reason why. But yeah. So last week we had an episode on clouds.
But I did talk, so it's all good.
Media.
Hey, get a part.
We're gonna have a couple.
It's in my audacity. It's all good.
We're gonna have a couple of interruptions here because apparently he can't hear us half the time. But that's okay.
I heard you were going. I just wanted to interrupt.
It's gonna be a major editing job.
I'm not.
I just wanted to interrupt. It's
okay, so Flutterguy was away last week, and you're back now, which is great.
Hooray.
Yay.
We had our clouds episode last week because we couldn't get our special guest on. It turns out it was just a misunderstanding in terms of times and dates and things like that.
I derped on the date. That's my bad.
But
Yeah, and I derped on the announcements.
Sorry. Regardless of the wide variety of derpage found on and off this show, we actually have our special guest this week, so everyone should give a warm welcome to CosmicUnicorn.
Hi. Hooray.
Hooray, yeah.
As
Thanks for joining
you were
us.
saying before the show, this will finally give people your gender.
Don't tell anyone.
You had a funny story about Everfree Northwest, didn't you?
Oh, yeah. I had my boyfriend there helping me at my table because how could I man a table by myself? It's ridiculous. And people kept coming up and asking him if he was CosmicUnicorn or telling him that they liked his art. And he would just have to keep pointing to me.
No, I remember when I first stopped by. I remember Everfree Northwest. I had the pleasure of meeting you, actually. For those who don't know that, and I happened to stop by your table, but you were out at the time, and your boyfriend was just sitting there. And I was like, I thought I saw somewhere that CosmicUnicorn was a female. He's like, oh yeah, she's away. I was like, oh, well, this is awkward. I'll be back in like half an hour or so. But I was totally confused.
You were one of those people?
Well, I had heard in a comment or somewhere something but I wasn't positive because I'm not that big of an online stalker. But
It's okay, I kind of make it ambiguous.
No, it's fine.
That's all right. My gender gets confused all the time, and like I was saying, I have a podcast with 30 episodes.
Flutterguy and
for
Rainbow
good reason.
Plasma are secretly female, so
You're a girl, right, Plasma?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, of course. as long as we're on the same page here.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll be whatever
Alright,
gender you are.
Joking about genders aside, Cosmic Unicorn. For those who don't know and are fans, people watching, and for those who maybe haven't heard of you or heard about your art, a generic question we like to ask on the show is if you could explain maybe who you are or what you do as an artist, or just tell us a little bit about yourself. It's kind of an open question, but hopefully it...
All right then.
Answer
Well, I'm an art student, and that's about it right now. And being an art student is kind of a full-time job. Lots of homework, lots of work. Although I am working kind of part-time on an indie game project about squirrels, so that's fun. But student is basically my life right now, so.
But there's always time for ponies, correct?
I don't know. These days, not so much. I'm trying.
Yeah, that's tough, especially with school. I know, especially right now, I had a couple of things that I wanted to try out in terms of artistic stuff, and I've just found that it's the workload kind of picks up around this time of year, and especially like you said with art students, it's always, you kind of have that big workload all the time, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
That's tough.
It's always fun when you can work ponies into something you do academically, though. I know you've done that a few times.
Yeah, once or twice for a project, and then for homework. The Fluttershy, the anatomy of a Fluttershy, and then the Seattle ponies were a project of mine.
You did a master study on Gustav Dorr, didn't you? Or did you add the pony in before or after on
Yeah,
that?
the study was just of the tree, and then I drew Celestia separately on a piece of paper, and I just added it in.
Separately. Yeah, no, I thought it was funny because you did that as a master study, and then I ended up doing a master study of your master study with the Celestia in it, because I fell in love with that piece. And so we, happened to feature that piece of yours and then, my awful master study of yours redone in graphite. And that was a lot of fun.
So, Bernd, I think we should talk just first and foremost about kind of the connection between you and Cosmic Unicorn, because a lot of the stuff that you've had on this show and a lot of the stuff that you've brought up on this show has roots with the guest that we have on today. So do you want to draw the connections there?
Well, connections. I guess it first started out as when I first became a brony. I started looking at different artists and different things that I found interesting, and Cosmic Unicorn, I guess they happened to be one of those artists that attracted my attention, because at the time I had just started taking Drawing 1 and I had an interest in art and a blooming interest in art, and so all throughout Drawing 1 I was constantly just wanted to draw ponies and was looking at other artists for inspiration. So I would look at Cosmic Unicorn's pieces for different inspiration and things like that, because all of the art that you happened to put on your DeviantArt was something you were doing for an art project or some kind of recreation of an old art master or something.
Yeah.
So it was always really cool because you took a more educational sense and an educational mind behind the art that you created rather than just making pretty pictures of ponies. Because I found that to be everywhere, but the more educational sense or fine art versions of ponies I found harder to find.
Yeah, it was kind of more of a matter of efficiency. I wanted, I spent all day at school, drawing still lives and drawing a shadow sphere or drawing the figure, just sort of really academic, boring things a lot of the time. And so I'd come home, and then to practice the same principles, I would just do ponies or draw ponies. And then it turned out people started liking them, so I just kept drawing them, and it's gotten out of hand now.
Is it more freeing to draw ponies as opposed to schoolwork? Can you have a bit more of a creative edge?
Well, yeah. I mean, I always used it as because I can practice all the same rules and art principles and everything, and even they're simple. They're basically shadow spheres with legs. I mean, they're incredibly simple shapes, and so it's fun to practice things like light with them, or whatever.
You did a light study of a Celestia doll, didn't you?
Oh yeah, that was recently. And so I would just use it as kind of a fun way to practice all the rules, basically, after school.
When you did the Celestia that was a painting, right? That was traditional painting. You were learning how to do oil painting,
it's
right?
oil painting. Yes, I just started learning how to oil paint in the fall.
Nice. Yeah. Another random thing when we've crossed paths was I was just learning to oil paint, and I had just completed my painting 1 final. That was a master study, in quotes, of a Blitz Ponies piece, where I kind of did my own little interpretation of it. And right when I finished it, you did a little, like, critique post on the r/My Little Pony Vector School on Reddit. And, like, right when I finished, and it was, like, perfect timing. And then I was like, yeah, and I, like, took the opportunity to post my art piece on that. And you actually did a really awesome critique, and it turns out you do a lot of awesome critiques. But I guess that's another little thing where we cross paths, where you did a critique on my oil painting when you were learning oil painting and I was learning oil painting. And it's really cool, and that was what actually made me finally grasp value. And that's how apparently all these memes have started. But
Oh god, I started it.
We'll get into value in a second. My goodness.
That's why I brought up value at first on the show, was because of that. Because seeing
My fault.
the use of value in my own piece from your critique just made it click, seeing it in my own work.
That's usually how it works.
So, anyway, no, I had a question about that. Do you often do critiques for people on DeviantArt or people in different communities, like artistically speaking?
I do them whenever I have time, which is not often, but whenever I see a piece of artwork that I really like, and regardless of the skill level, it really doesn't matter to me. What I do to show the person that I like it is I'll give them a critique and how I think that they could make it better, and I'll show them by like editing it and everything, because you can talk about how you should change it, and you can type about it or whatever, but it's better to just show the person what I'm talking about.
I definitely know what you
And
mean.
then I try to explain things so that anyone else who reads it, can get an idea. And it also helps summarize the information in my own head, so it's kind of a personal exercise in and of itself. So I can kind of, I don't know, just review my brain.
From what I've heard from a couple teachers, one of the best ways to actually learn, even in your own art, is through critique. And we tell that to a lot of people, especially in Vectors and like the Vector Club, because to see something that's so meant to be so perfect. But no, I really appreciate that critique, by the way. It was awesome. It actually really helped me.
Oh, awesome. Yay.
Yeah.
How long do you usually spend on critiques? Because just looking at specifically Burns' one, because that's the one we brought up, not only did you shift a lot of, because you were talking with him not necessarily about color, but about the value of it. Then you shifted a piece, and then you did like a step-by-step recreation of the piece. How long does that take you?
Well, for Burns, I don't know, maybe an hour or two. I'm not sure. I actually went downstairs and like mixed a little bit of paint as well. But I don't know, maybe 2 hours. It really depends. Sometimes.
No. You've done a lot of really cool critiques for a lot of people. There was one that you did for, what was his name again? It was Nelvakre. I think it's pronounced Nelvakre or something like that. But it was about his landscape piece, and you went into depth on everything, and the value, and like the composition and space in it, and atmospheric perspective, and like it was awesome. And again, it was super educational for me. And now I constantly see the things that you mentioned on that in other like pieces, even pieces featured on the show.
Oh, landscapes are my favorite, so.
Yeah, so I guess that leads into my question is, do you do a lot of landscape pieces, and do you enjoy doing them?
Yes, I do. Yes. I do love landscapes. I don't know, there's something really peaceful about them, and my mom is a landscape painter, or was for a while. Now she's painting crazy birds, but
because you have a lot of really awesome landscape pieces in your galleries.
Yeah.
And there could stand to be more, though.
Well, there was one. You have a Canterlot Work in Progress 2.0. It's just like a black and white version of a background.
Oh, yes.
I'm still waiting to see that colored because it's beautiful.
Oh,
in black
don't
and white.
worry. It will be colored. You'll see at Everfree.
Ooh.
Oh my gosh. Don't say that to me in my wallet. It will hurt.
Burns, your wallet is infinite from what I've heard. And from what I've experienced,
Speaking of infinitely poor burned, and spending way too much money at cons, your artwork at your con was awesome. You had a piece with Applejack that you did in pen, and you were selling the original there, and I love that. It was awesome that you had that for sale there, and I even have it like right in front of me here on my desk.
Yes.
And it's got like your signature on it, and then you actually did what's the word I'm looking for? A commission of my OC, and then you ended up doing 2 of them, which was like blew my mind.
You know, I've never done commissions at a con before, so I was like really nervous about drawing with it's really hard for me to draw with lots of people around. It's like my brain does not like it at all.
Oh yeah.
And so it didn't turn out how I wanted, so I wanted to do another one. And I actually, for the convention, I really wanted to do ink drawings, but I didn't practice enough beforehand, and I was really nervous, so I didn't want to risk it. So hopefully this time
I'm super happy with both of them. I will definitely be taking up on that offer.
Well, all right.
No, we love both of them. We featured them on an episode like based around that con, and I got a commission from for each of our podcast members, for Rainbow Plasma, Flutter Guy, and Piggy Dash. I got them each a commission from a different artist. Rainbow Plasma, I had John Azeko. Flutter Guy, I had Kim Art, I think was the name. Or no, that was Pinky Dash. And then
the guy who does...
No, I had KDW.
Flutter Guys, I had not Milkshake, but
it's the person who does
Mosquito, Giant Mosquito.
Yeah, Giant Mosquito. Yeah.
And so they each had a little commission of their OC, and then you happened to do mine, so we featured all that in a big episode, and it was a lot of fun.
By the way, those have been shipped out as of this week.
Yeah.
So,
Yay.
when was Everfree Northwest
You're not supposed
again?
to tell people. I already feel horrible enough.
It's become like a reoccurring joke, and I can't believe it's actually happened now. Because I was just expecting you to bring them to Everfree Northwest.
Finally kicked myself to do it, because what ended up happening was like I got them all and I got them the thing, and I just hand wrote letters and put them in the packages like last week, and then I stuck them in my car. But then I never got the chance to go to like the post office after school and stuff. So on MLK holiday, I ended up driving all the way to college just to find out it was closed. So I was like, what am I supposed to do today? And I was like, oh, I have these packages I can mail. How convenient. So I took all day to like Sharpie your addresses on them and ship them out.
You took all day.
The whole day.
I made sure.
That writing better be spectacular then.
It was awful.
You did.
On one, I even wrote, Flutter Guy wrote your name, Flutter Guy, and I was like, like scribbled out and then put your real name.
Nice. It's just become like it's not even like it's not a big deal. Like, feel free to take as much time as you want because it's a gift to us. But it's become like a funny thing now. Yeah. It's just like, hey, have you shipped those off again? No. And it's like, then, like 6 months later, it's like, oh right, yeah.
Pinky Dashes, unfortunately, is going to take like 20 to 30 days to get all the way to Australia.
What? Are you shipping it instead of flying it?
Literally shipping it.
It was the one that didn't cost me $30 to ship.
It
was the cheap
so
one.
It'll be on a boat.
He stuck it in a kangaroo and sent the kangaroo swimming to you.
That was a flying kangaroo, mind you.
Oh man. So back to Cosmic Unicorn.
Yeah, sorry.
Our guest for the show. A piece that caught my eye, and it's a piece that a ton of people have seen, was the kind of adapted version of your comic. It's called The Sisters, and you did this for Everfree, and it's just I don't know. There's so much to these pieces that just astound me, because as someone who, I don't consider myself, at least at the moment, artistically inclined. I mean, everyone can learn and everyone can practice and everyone can get to a certain point, but at the moment, that's funny. But you know, for a piece like this with such an amount of detail, how long does it take you to make something like The Sisters?
Well, not only how long, but like what goes into developing something like this?
Yeah.
Like, what do you even think about? Like composition, color?
I'm actually very interested in the composition.
Since it was a remake, I mean, I already kind of had the idea of how I wanted to do it. So I basically just thumbnailed it out, and that's where you draw little tiny versions of the image. Just really quick sketch, and thumbnails are essential to any large, elaborate piece. It takes so much of the work out of it because you can draw a bunch of little tiny versions of it, and play around with the composition, like where you want things to be, and then you just slowly draw them bigger and bigger, sketch them larger and larger, and then you draw your working sketch, and then you jump into painting it. So, that was a step, but I don't know how long it took me hours-wise. I would say maybe 10 or 15 hours. I really have no idea.
I just realized the landscape in the background behind Celestia is one of the black and white landscapes that I just mentioned.
Yes, I also recycle pieces because it saves time. So that's my dirty secret right there. So I cut corners.
I've noticed. I've found it out.
and yet, it's still much better than anything we can do.
When you recycle a piece, do you tend to draw over it, or do you just use the original material and kind of size it?
I usually try and change it enough so that it doesn't look like the original that it was. It just depends. I usually change it to match the scene. So
it was a landscape piece, so it was perfect for an actual piece of art. I mean, that's what it's meant for. We're vector artists. We know there's no such thing as recycling. It's all resources.
Well, yeah, in vectoring especially.
Well, yeah, and that's actually a technique I learned from Future Poly, which is a digital art school here in Washington. That just opened up about 2 or 3 years ago, and that was one of the things that the guys there talked about was reusing your own work in other work because it saves time, and you can get unique looks and etc. And so I was borrowing a technique from them.
Very cool. This piece was piece from a larger part you did. It was from your comic, and the name of that was Discordantly, correct?
Yes.
What went into making that Discordantly comic? We can't really show everything on the screen right now for those watching, but if you go to her DeviantArt, you can check out the whole thing, and it's an awesome comic having to do with Celestia and Luna, and then the interaction between like Discord and that whole area.
Yes, I still need to finish the remake. I've been hung up and haven't had a chance to do that. So much stuff to do. Yeah, that was interesting. I did that last year because that's when the episode came out, and then around fall, and I literally drew the entire thing, all the original long comic, in my sketchbook in like one day, like kind of at lunch while I was at school. And then every day I just finished a page and posted it online. And this was between episodes 1 and 2 of The Return of Harmony or whatever it's called. And and I just posted it in between the episodes, and then it got really popular and it was weird and I didn't understand what was happening.
I remember when it got like linked around and people are going crazy for it. I love the Discord panel when he like turns evil. It's great.
Now they made him not evil, so there goes my plans.
I know, right? What's with that?
You gotta do like a sequel to your.
Nah. I was actually working on a prequel, but again, I have no time.
Yeah.
And I have so many other projects that I want to be doing. I wish I could just clone myself, and that would solve most of my problems.
Send your clone off to do all of your schoolwork.
Well, we both do schoolwork. We collaborate, you see.
Okay.
So,
I just picture a bunch of cosmic unicorns going like art, I love art, just everywhere.
Basically.
So, can you explain to us a little bit about your art history with art, how you grew up? Because you mentioned that your mom was a landscape artist, and so how did you get started with art? Was it a family thing?
Well, I decided to pursue art because I decided that it was the only thing I could do, so I should probably work on it. I was a C student in high school, and didn't really care about school so much. Thought it was kind of dumb, waste of time. School bureaucracies.
Oh, we'll be in there.
I have a 2-year degree, but my mom is a professional artist, and my dad is an optometrist, and so that's how I grew up. And I'm an only child, so I'm all sorts of weird. And
art.
So I don't know. I've just kind of always been drawing. My mother made a point to never tell me like color within the lines, or she never really told me what to draw. She just kind of let me do whatever I wanted. Yeah, she just let me do whatever I wanted, and yeah, and then when I was about 18, I was like, I should probably choose what I want to do as a career. So I went to Future Poly because I was thinking, well, the only career that seems viable with art for me right now would be video game art. So I went to Future Poly to see if I like that, and then I was like, okay, and so I decided to enroll in art school, and so now I'm going to Gage Academy in Seattle, and I'm loving it. And but now I'm falling in love with painting, so I don't know how video games are going to work out.
No, that's the life of a learning artist,
Yep.
though, is constantly changing your major, changing what you think you'll be.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the
So-
job opportunities for artists out there besides, say, video gaming? Because as someone who's not at all an art student, I have really no idea. Obviously, there's independent work, but what other stuff is,
Yeah,
is out there?
freelance. I prefer to be freelance, honestly. I mean, it's really hard to be freelance, but I don't know. I don't like working for people. So,
I see.
and I mean, and like on this video game that I'm working on, like I'm in charge of everything, and I still have to answer to some people, and it's difficult for me sometimes because I'm in charge, but not really, and I don't know. I like creative control, and I know that I have to surrender that sometimes. But as for other art careers, video game art, there's illustration, you could be a comic artist, graphic designer, painter. I mean, there's a whole plethora of things. I don't think that it's a good idea to just pick one. I think you should just, like, as an aspiring artist, should just work on their art skills overall and then just do whatever comes up, because that seems to be how it works, is that you're just going along learning stuff, and then you discover opportunities that may not be what you originally planned, and it's usually a good idea to just go with it.
Yeah, a lot of the time I hear with people who choose art as a career, there's obviously that I'm not sure, it's not stereotype or joke, but there's some sort of reoccurring joke with people, parents going, oh my goodness, my kid's gonna be an art student or whatever, they'll never have a job or whatever. So I think that's good advice, because there's a little bit of truth to that. It's difficult to find jobs because it's not only a competitive environment, but there's not a tremendous amount of opportunities, not quite like, say, business, right?
Well, there's too many businessmen, so.
Yeah. It's one of those jobs that you have to really love because it's going to be hard.
Yeah, you have to own it, is what you have to do. You really have to take charge. Be your own boss.
Yeah, because it is tough, and it's something that you have to really take an initiative on.
Definitely. You can't kind of delegate responsibility to other people. You just have to take control of everything and just be organized and, learn what you need to learn, because it all comes down to your basic art skills. But that's the great thing about art careers, is that, if you have an awesome portfolio, that it speaks for itself. So, you can get hired. You don't necessarily need a degree.
Yeah.
But
Even in the art world, it's all about selling yourself.
oh yeah, definitely.
So, we brought you on mostly because you're a fantastic artist and you have a lot to teach us, and you have a lot to teach the people who watch our show. But specifically, we have a couple of points that have come up in the last few weeks that we thought we would bounce some ideas off of you,
Okay.
because we would like to have someone who
Is more well versed.
has formal education in things in order to give a more definite opinion on these subjects. Because a lot of the times, the thing with us is there's not a lot of definite statements with us, because we're not all formally educated, and we're not all very in depth about things, and so we want to provide the basics to people. But when it comes to more detailed stuff, we are very careful about that, because we can be very wrong. So the very first thing that was brought up in the last few weeks was value, and we talked about that a little bit earlier. But I just wanted to kind of get from you a definition of value and how it can affect a piece, because we just wanted to kind of close out on that topic and make sure everyone understands it
All
properly.
right then. So value basically refers to the range of black and white tones, like grayscale tones, and it provides the substructure of color. So think of a black and white photograph. I mean, it's basically the color is there, but then it's not there because it's black and white. It's been grayscaled. And light is the prerequisite for value. And so in order to have value, you need light. And in order to have color, you also need light. And so there's this chain of kind of things that you need to think about when you're doing a painting. And value is really important because it is the light. And so if you get the value wrong, then your colors are going to look completely wrong. And you can't save your painting if your values are completely wrong. So I don't know if that makes sense or...
No, that makes perfect sense. That was way better than the confounded definition that I tried to throw together.
But I think it echoed our general statement at the very end of the day.
Just much more well put.
Okay.
Yeah.
And condensed, that's for sure.
How does value differ from like a digital medium versus a traditional
It's the
like
same.
painting?
It's the same. It's just it's color without hue, and hue is color, so it's color without color basically. I mean, so color can't exist without light. I mean, that's physics. So I mean, the fact that you can see anything and that there's color, that's optics, that's, you know. And so...
Well, speaking of, like, lights and stuff like that, that's actually a perfect transition into our second part of that question was we mentioned, one of our fans mentioned, what was his name again?
It was Datamne.
Datamne, yes. That's right. Datamne happened to mention... an awesome fan of ours happened to mention that we always talk about the red, blue, yellow, like the traditional painting color wheel. And he mentioned that the RGB color wheel, the colors that you would see on a monitor, how colors work digitally, might be a better color wheel to use when talking about art and digital medium.
That's fair enough. So, yeah, that's correct.
You mentioned how value is like the presence of light. Does that tie into how RGB works? Is like it's additive color, correct? Where all colors
color
create
is
a white.
Color doesn't. I mean, and then depending on the medium that you're working in, that changes kind of how you might think about color. RGB is digital media, red, green, blue, which is the colors of the pixels that make up your monitor, and then the red, yellow, blue is your traditional painting colors, which are the primaries, and then the idea that they're primaries is that you can create all the secondary colors from those primaries. But since, you know, RGB, you're in a computer, you don't need to mix color. You don't necessarily need to use the RYB, the red, yellow, blue palette thingy. So
that's what was curious to me because for like talking about a monitor digital, when you have all the presence of red, green, and blue, it creates a white. It creates white on your monitor. So when you look
light. So RGB refers to light, and then the red, yellow, blue traditional primary colors refers to pigment. So that's paint and ink and things like that.
Yeah, and when you mix them instead of a white, it creates a black.
Or mud, yeah, basically.
One of the issues that Datamne had was our use of the word complementary. And our use of specifically the RYB color wheel. And he went on a lot of things about how the RYB color wheel is very outdated and shouldn't be taught and blah, 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 and a bunch of things like that. But it was a good point to bring up just to have it on the show. The different, like, can you confirm this? Like, there are, depending on which color wheel you're using, like whether or not it's digital using light, a light-based color wheel like RGB, and the other color wheel, RBY, but there are different complementary colors depending on which medium you're using it in, correct?
Like different complementary colors, or? Well,
for example, you know, when you're thinking of the traditional color wheel, you know, with if you're painting, RBY, then red and green would be considered complementary colors.
Yeah.
That's what everyone's taught that's what everyone who's taken any basic, you know, grade 8 art class has been taught. That's what is a generally accepted piece of knowledge. But what Datamne is trying to bring up is that if we're talking about a digital medium, then red and cyan would be the complementary colors, not red and green.
True.
So that does hold some weight then?
Well, he's probably talking about a Yermby wheel, which is RGB, with red, green, blue, with cyan, magenta, and yellow. And that's considered a more universal color wheel. But complementary basically just means you have a color and the complement would be the color that's across the color wheel from it. So kind of its opposite. I like to think of it as the opposite. Complementary is a stupid word. I don't know why they use that word. It makes it sound like they're supposed to go together, but really they're actually opposites, and I don't know.
Thank you. That's what I said.
It drives me crazy.
Opposites still go nicely
Yes,
together.
exactly, and that's why they're complementary, but it's still confusing to me, so I don't
It's still confusing.
Those artists, what do they know?
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I just wanted to bring that up because it was an interesting point that was brought up. The fact that, on a computer screen, if we're making something in a digital medium, the red and green, which are traditionally known to be these complementary colors, are in fact not. So does that change how people should be creating art if they're using a digital medium? Like, is it a big difference?
It's all in terms of how you think about it. If you're going to be painting with pigments, you might not want to think about it that way because pigments work differently than light. I think the Yermby wheel refers more to colored light, which makes more sense with digital mediums, but pigments can get complicated. You have to consider like warm colors and cool colors and things like that. But I don't know, digital medium, it's kind of more straightforward, I think, than pigments. But
that is one of the things I had a hard time wrapping my head around, was that in the red, blue, yellow color wheel, it's like there's this color and it has an opposite, and that opposite acts a certain way. So then when there's like, oh, there's another color wheel and it has a different opposite, it's like, do certain colors have different quote-unquote opposites? And I thought it was just confound to be like, well, when you're looking at a computer, red's opposite is blue, and I was just like, shenanigans.
Well, I mean, you can think about it in terms, like, even if you combine them, like, okay, the opposite of red is green, right? Which is the general rule. It's not cyan. For paint, anyways. But, so if you have a red and then the opposite of orange is blue, I believe. And so if you have a red-orange, the opposite would be kind of a green-blue. So they mix together, too. So, I mean, that's...
Yeah, and when you're talking about the traditional color wheel, when you end up mixing a color's complement or opposite, it tends to gray it and make it more of a neutral color.
It
or
neutralizes
brown
it, yes.
depending. But on the computer, I don't know if that works.
It still kind of works. It's just, different because of how the pixels in your brushes in Photoshop or whatever program you're using work. But because like if you make a brush that has texture in it and like you can see through it a little bit, and allow some of the color behind it, like if you put down orange and then you use a brush with blue and you make it a textured brush and you can still see some of the orange through the blue, you can do it like that and it will still give you this scintillating effect because your eye reacts to orange and blue a certain way and it really makes it vibrate in your brain, kind of.
So, speaking along those terms, does that still work when using color traditionally? Or is it better to mix, like, red and blue, for example, when digitally speaking?
It all depends on what you're trying to achieve. I mean, I don't know how to answer that completely, but it's a case...
I was just confused because it's like, if you have, like you were saying, how orange and blue kind of counteract each other like that, when working digitally, do you want to take, like, the traditional complement when you're trying to neutralize something or however put, or do you want to take the RGB?
I honestly, with digital mediums, I personally work as closely to traditional mediums as possible. Like I try and pretend and make my techniques more towards the traditional painting spectrum because it helps me think about art in general. Because, if I try to think of art in terms of the computer program, I think it kind of slows me down a little bit and creates more problems. But if I just think of it in terms of like one artistic language kind of thing, it makes it a little easier for me. But, your color relationship, and color is something I'm still learning a lot about. It's a huge topic, so don't take my word as final because I don't know everything.
Oh, yeah. No, is this something interesting that a fan of ours brought up? So
a lot about color depends on the relationships between warms and cools and how you use those in your painting. So you could have a warm red and a cool red, or a warm blue and a cool blue, and then, how you layer those next to each other or whatever you do with them is a large part of how color works.
Very cool.
I think it's legitimate. I think it's legitimate to say that even though on a technical level, red and cyan would be opposites on the color wheel in a digital medium, I think there's still an effect you get from putting green and red as a traditional complement.
You can see the opposite color, basically the complementary color. If you stare at something red, for a really long time, and then you look at like a white surface, you can see the complementary color in your own eyeball. Like it will leave an imprint image. Like have you ever seen have you ever seen that famous painting of like the American flag, and it's like all in really weird, crazy colors, and you're supposed to stare at it for like 30 seconds, and then you look at it like a white screen or a white surface.
Yeah, and then it makes it that
and then
color.
it makes it the actual
when
colors.
you're working. Oh no! When you're on a monitor, that's what happens. Is if you stare at something that's red on a monitor, and then the screen goes white, it'll be blue. So the color complement you see on a monitor will be a complement on the RGB color wheel. But traditionally speaking, if you stare at something in the real world and stare at white, I don't know if it'll be the same. Or I'm not
Test
sure.
it out.
Maybe I should. Anyway,
Let's move along from color because oh my goodness,
we could talk forever about color.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, that ties in another point that fan brought up on our YouTube page. Was I mentioned that warmer colors have the tendency to seem closer and cooler colors have the tendency to seem far away. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
What I ended up being wrong about, however, was I said warm colors have a quicker frequency. So they tend to get to your eye quicker, but that's false because all light travels at the same speed, and it turns out that red has a longer wavelength than something like cool colors do. So longer wavelengths seem closer, yet closer together wavelengths seem far. I don't know, physics, whatever.
Yeah, honestly, I think at that point, I believe I was arguing with you about that before the show, and then you brought it up, and I was just like, forget it. Because like you were insinuating that red got to the eye first, and I was like, what?
I remembered the term that the teacher was talking about of how like wavelengths will interact with your eye differently, and that was what I had taken out of it. But
that makes sense to me. And saying that warmer colors might through the perception in our head pop out.
It's
more.
just like flames on a car.
Well,
Red makes light go really
if you
fast.
think about it, light is a particle. So I mean, if you're looking at like the horizon, something way off in the distance, it's going to seem bluer or more lavender because it's further away and it takes a longer time for the light to actually reach your eye. And then in between all that distance is a bunch of air and things like that, and the particles kind of get distorted, and so the light will appear more blue because it's further away, and then if something's closer, less distance, so it'll appear redder. And so in landscapes, you're going to want to consider keeping your foreground more on the warm side, and then your distance background, more on the cooler side. Except during like the golden hour kind of times, which is like sunset and sunrise, where the sun is off in the horizon, and then things in the foreground will be darker, and then things in the distance will be redder, and what have you.
We brought up a piece by Aaron JVL recently when we were talking about value, and I'm going to attempt to find it here. But basically, what it used was it used value in a very opposite way because I believe, I'm not sure if you'll agree with this, I could be completely wrong on this, but things with a higher amount of value, things that are brighter, tend to stand out and kind of come forward the same way that things that are in warmer colors come forward compared to cooler colors. So we were looking at that, and what Aaron JVL did was he made something really, really cool with a Fluttershy piece, which I'm trying to find now, but it's very hard to when I'm talking. But he made something where he made a light like clearing surrounded by this kind of darker forest, and so almost like you were looking through the trees in order to see the piece inside. Here,
it's called Nature by Aaron J. Vale.
Thank you.
Yep.
But anyways, he's kind of got the darker things, kind of like a ring around the lighter piece in the back. So does color kind of work the same way, where if you surround a warmer color in cooler colors, it'll pop it backwards if you do it correctly, obviously?
It'll make it pop forwards. Yes, or it'll just make it pop in general. I suppose. I mean, I would have to see the piece to know what you're talking about.
It's in the chat. You should.
Oh, is it? Oh,
Or
right.
there's a little Skype
Oh.
chat.
Yeah, this one demonstrates value a little bit better. But in that piece, at least to me, anyways,
I see.
with the darker trees, that's weird. With the darker trees, it seems like those trees are a lot closer, and then those darker trees kind of force the light
That's
back.
value in action there, and with value, things that are closer to you will be darker, and then things that are further away from you will be lighter or have less value, kind of more mid-tones or just lighter in general. So,
And again, that's what's the word I'm looking for? God, I can't even know. Words are hard. Mental thing. What is the term I'm looking for? Words? I don't even speak English.
I can't even attempt to pick up the pieces of that fracture sentence.
What is the word for mental stuff that
Your
is
perception of the
or something?
your
What?
Psychological.
Thank you, Pinky Dash.
Perfect
How did
timing.
you possibly? How did you possibly?
This is why I love you.
Oh my goodness.
well, I mean, the idea of using like dark in the foreground and then lighter in the background. I mean, that exists. If you look outside, and look at something, the things that are closest to you will have a darker value because there's more shadow or whatever. I mean, unless the sun is behind you, I guess. But
Yeah.
generally,
That's what I was trying to say. Is it's more psychological. I mean, you can even in front of your monitor, if you put your hand in front of your face in front of your monitor, your hand is going to be darker, so on and so forth. And that happens a lot in real life.
yes.
Well, that's because your
And so,
monitor
like,
is
your brain
emitting
can
light
use it
burned
for
in
that.
your hand, isn't it? But
Well,
I think
whatever
that's a
you're
little bit
looking at
different.
most of the time emits light. So
It reflects light. It reflects light.
yeah, there you go.
And reflected light is a
Anyway.
huge part of color and value and things like that.
Yeah, we tried to get into that a little bit in our lighting episode about like how colors and light reflect off things and how they interact with so on and so forth. So you can check that out for our lighting episode.
Hey,
Nice plug.
Yeah. Another
So
plug is we mentioned atmospheric perspective and how Cosmic Unicorn was saying the particles of like the air get in the way. That is part of our weather episode, actually. So if you want to hear a little bit more about atmospheric perspective, you can check out our weather episode.
you're just full of plugs today, aren't you?
My goodness. So, Cosmic Unicorn, it's impossible, in fact, to attempt to say that some piece of art is the most important part. But if you could say to someone who is trying to learn the most about art, what would you say is something that they should really look into? Maybe something that's underrated that not a lot of people know about. And don't say value, please.
Something
Say
that
value.
an aspiring artist should consider. Draw
Yes.
every day. Draw every day. And know that there is no such thing. I tell this to everybody. There's no such thing as a bad drawing. It is impossible. So don't get hung up over whether your work looks good or not, because today's bad drawing is going to help you create tomorrow's good drawing, and tomorrow's good drawing is going to be next year's horrible drawing. So it's a sliding scale, and you just think of every quote-unquote bad drawing is just going to help you become a better artist, and that no drawing is worthless as long as you learn something from it. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as you learn something from it. It was a valuable drawing, and it makes you a better artist. So yeah, I like to think of it in terms of that, and that mistakes are good, and they tell you what you need to work on, and things like that.
Yeah, no, that's definitely great. We try to encourage people as much as possible to go out there and just do, because we talk about theory a lot. We don't draw on this show. We talk about theoreticals and different things that people can use to potentially make their art more diverse, or I'm not going to say better,
Yeah.
but
Improve.
add more elements to the repertoire.
Improve,
Hopefully,
yeah.
introduce them to things.
Mm-hmm.
And but at the end of the day, like, you got to go out and do, because you can sit here and listen to our podcast and then sit down and you're going to be the exact same as if you hadn't, if you haven't practiced.
Mhm.
If you haven't practiced.
It's that age-old mantra that practice makes perfect. it really works.
You know, I had a kendo sensei who would say that practice does not make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect, because it doesn't matter if you practice something and do it wrong, because all you're going to learn is how to do it wrong, basically. So whenever you draw, just do the best that you can and really put your heart into it. But then at the same time, you know, kind of
always look at it as a way to improve.
Yeah, and be more objective about your work. Don't compare yourself to others. Like, I see artists, and you know, I'm guilty of it too, and I'm trying to not do that, and I've gotten better at it. But stop comparing yourself to other people. Like, those are other people. That's their work. It's not you, and you are not your work. I mean, it's your work is just something you do. It's not your personality. It's not, you know, it's a part of you, but it's not you, kind of. It's hard to explain, you know, and because if you connect yourself too much to your work, you know, it makes it difficult for you to take criticism or critiques, and then you take it personally, and then you get all worried about it, and then you don't get anywhere because you're too upset about it or anything, you know, or something like that. And so I think it's important to not compare yourself to others, to look at others and admire their work, and, you know, ask yourself, what can I do? You know, I really like this person's work, but what can I do, you know, that would make my work better, just like their work? Kind of like, what kind of techniques do they use that I could maybe borrow? You know, and to kind of, you just borrow techniques from everywhere, and you just kind of mush them all together, and then you have your own methods. And, you know, that's how it works, basically.
Mm-hmm.
I think, anyway.
Well, that's definitely good, because especially when you're looking at other artists, all you're seeing is the finished product. You don't know what went into it, and what goes into it is not only when they made it, but also perhaps they have 12 more years of practice than you have, or maybe they're doing it professionally for so many more years than you have, or maybe they're looking at their own piece and they're going, "Wow, this is awful," like a lot of people do, you know. So
we kept offering Blitz Pony all these compliments, just like, "Oh, I hate this art piece; it's so bad." It's like, it looks beautiful.
Yeah, Blitz Pony was definitely down on her art, but I think she's getting more up to it because she's finally starting to put stuff on DeviantArt, which is fantastic.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think being down on yourself doesn't really get you anywhere. I think it's important to recognize what is not working in your artwork, but then it's also important to recognize what is working in your work. So, I mean, if you're always beating yourself up all the time, you're just kind of, you know, beating yourself up. You're not really getting anywhere. It's not improvement. It's not moving forward. It's just you feeling bad about yourself. And how does that make you a better artist? It doesn't. So stop it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, we love seeing things like time lapses or speed draws or stuff like that, or works in progress, just because, you know, it gives people kind of a starting point or ideas,
a sense of how process, you know, in like an art piece works.
Yeah,
it's all about process.
Actually, more and more people who we've featured on the show, or perhaps I think a lot of the people in our fan art, we've kept trying to encourage people to do that, because I think it's a great learning tool to see how people get from blank canvas to end product, because it's very intimidating for a lot of people starting out to look at like, if people were to look at a piece of yours and be like, well, I'll just never do that, but perhaps if they see the process, they can say, okay, well, I can try something and see where I get with that. So we've always encouraged people to do that, and I'm actually seeing a lot of other people. I know Assassin Monkey was one of our fans who was already doing that, and there's a couple of other people who are now making time lapses with like each and every one of their art pieces, and I cannot encourage that enough. I really, not only as an educational, but an entertainment value too.
Yeah, no, it's not only awesome as like a learning device, but it's also awesome as a way to critique upon someone's like sort of for process and how they go about doing something as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Especially if you're a new artist.
Yeah, that's something I want to do more of, but trying to figure out video recording things and screen recording things is part of the problem. So.
Yeah, try out live stream actually.
Yeah,
just get like a live stream that no one knows about, and then it can record it for you.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, kind of going back on that and kind of going full circle back to your critiques. Like, I personally find those very helpful, because it kind of shows the process that's going through, well, your mind when you're looking at an art piece or analyzing an art piece.
Definitely.
And there's always, you know, helpful tips and hints and stuff like that, which is really helpful for people who are just starting out.
Even on the critique that you did for me, like, you showed the traditional way of how you would go about starting the process of a painting. like a traditional
yeah,
painting where
you
you like
know,
started out, did the value, and so
and
on
like
and so
how you approach, and that's the thing too, between mediums, like the art rules, basically the art principles, like value and how color works and those kinds of things, is basically the same no matter what you're doing, no matter what medium you're using, whether it's traditional or digital. But how you start a painting and how you work with the medium varies and it changes. So like you can't, I mean, my technique for digital and traditional is kind of the same because that's how I work. But I mean, some people might have different approaches, and you might not necessarily want to do an oil painting the same way you do a digital painting, or you might want to think about it. The way that I showed you in your critique that I did for you was a very, very traditional kind of classical way to start an oil painting, where you do a grisaille painting, which is a monochromatic version of the image first, and that's to establish your value range and everything else. And then you put color on top of it, and that's the classical way to do it. That's how the old masters, all those dead old guys did it. Like
Yeah,
Da
the dead
Vinci
people.
and Vermeer and Rembrandt and those kind of guys.
Awesome.
They would do a monochromatic painting and then add color on top of it. And part of that was that paint was really expensive back then. They had to make all their own paint by themselves, and it was super expensive. But brown was relatively cheap because they could use things like clay. So they would do the underpainting and then put the color on top, and it was efficient. And efficiency is one of the things I try and kind of use as a core element to how I learn about art. Is like, what is the most efficient way to learn this? What is the most efficient way to practice this? That kind of thing. Which is why I like do pony paintings and then practice art things at the same time.
Right.
Efficiently fun.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Not only that, but a cool thing I learned was when you use like a brown or something, it gives it a warm undertone, doesn't it? Where if you were to use like a blue or something for your monochromatic underpainting, it would give it more of a cool tone when you put colors over it.
Well, yeah, and that's another huge part of it that I'm learning about right now, is that your underpainting with real paint, really affects how the paint that you put on top of it. Like I did this landscape painting a few weeks ago, and I learned that if you want to do a sky in paint, you paint the canvas orange first. And if you paint it orange first and then you put your blue on top, you wait for it to dry and then you put your blue on top of it, it'll make your blues look warmer, and that's how the sky looks. I mean, if you look at a nice blue sky, it looks actually kind of warm, and you put your blue on top of it, and then it makes the blue kind of scintillate and vibrate a little bit, and it makes it look more alive and more sky-like. And then it also makes your clouds warmer, and that's an example of how an underpainting can affect your final painting kind of thing.
And you mentioned before that you use a lot of traditional techniques when digital painting. So, things like that, I think people should look into more.
Yeah, like with digital, I do the underpainting as well, but instead of doing kind of like the brown paint, because brown also dries really fast, umber and sienna and those kinds of colors dry really fast. But for digital painting, when I do an underpainting kind of thing, I will choose a color that will unify the scene, kind of like the one color that will be the dominant mood color, the mood setting color. And I'll do it in kind of a desaturated version of that color. So usually like a grayish purple or a grayish blue, or whatever. And then it will kind of set the tone for the rest of the colors in the painting.
Well, just to grasp that a little bit more, as an example, did you use that technique in this recent gift you just made for two of your friends?
I did it for the Stranger one. The one titled Stranger.
Let's see if I can grab that so we can throw it on the screen. But just as an example for Stranger, what unifying color did you happen to use, just so it's easy for us to kind of grasp that concept?
Sort of a rusty brown color, I think.
No. So basically the overall tone of kind of what the piece is?
Pretty much. I mean...
Okay.
All right, well, unfortunately, we are running out of time. So does anybody have any burning questions, or Cosmic Unicorn, do you have any bits of essential knowledge for anyone listening?
I don't know. That's an intense question there. I don't know.
It is.
It's a loaded question.
Anything that stands out to you at this moment, they said, oh man, before I go, I should say this, or...
I really wish I said that,
Brent says it a lot.
I don't know. Just Draw every day, really. If you want to be a better artist, draw every day. That's what I am.
I think I can go with that because it's been echoing what I was saying. So when someone who is obviously much more educated than me confirms my opinion, I get to prance around a little bit.
Yeah. Do a little Twilight dance.
Yeah,
stick the tongue out and everything. Yeah.
Well, draw efficiently, I guess, would be my version of it. Draw efficiently every day.
Well, the last little bit that I would like to say is it was awesome seeing you. It was awesome seeing you at Everfree Northwest, and I appreciate all the things that you had for sale there.
I will actually be back. I was able to get a table. Thank you to the Everfree team.
Awesome.
They're amazing. I love them all. They're awesome people.
Yeah, you're having some trouble with that.
So come find me.
Their con book, so they owe you.
Yeah. No, we'll all be there. Or at least 3 of us will be there. But we'll all try to get out there and hopefully we'll come out there and meet you in person and say thank you for being on our show. But for now, I'm going to say thank you for being on our show because you were a wonderful guest and very insightful. And I think a lot of people will be able to learn from this episode, which is what we kind of go for, which is awesome. Yeah. So right now,
so my internet's working perfectly now. At the end of the
sweet.
episode.
So Piggy Dash, just in time. Can you do the plugs?
Wait. First, let's let Cosmic Unicorn plug herself. We know you.
Oh, that's
have,
a very good point.
You have a DeviantArt account.
Yeah.
And people can go there. It's cosmicunicorn.deviantart.com. But do you have anywhere else that people can find your art or
anything else you'd like to plug?
No, that's pretty much where I am on the internet. I also have a Tumblr, Cosmic Unicorn Scribbles, and that's just kind of my online kind of sketchbook where I just post all sorts of random things. I post a lot of things from school, like stuff that I'm working on at school, things I'm doing at school, and rants I have or whatever, just my brain, basically.
It's just a dumping ground for all Cosmic Unicorn.
Brain.
Right.
Yeah.
That's great.
Cool. All right, now plugs. Pinky Dash.
Now, Pinky Dash, can you do the plugs now that your internet's working perfectly fine?
Okay, it's not exactly working perfectly, but just keep in mind, I am doing them, so if you can't hear me, I'm still doing them anyway, alright? Oh, good. Okay, so, plug starting now. We have a DeviantArt account, which is cutieartcrusaders.deviantart.com. That's where you can go to see any of our previous episodes, all the art that we featured on the show, some stuff that we haven't, stuff that we haven't had time to show, or just didn't fit in with the theme, etc., etc. There's all in our favorites folder, like the whole heap of folders in there, just go through, have fun. Watch, everyone. We also have an email account, which is cutieartcrusaders@gmail.com. If you have any questions to send in for me, please do, because I'm running out. It's also the place to go to send in anything for our OC episodes coming up, which I'm sure Rainbow Plasma will want to talk about.
We'll get to that in a second.
Yep. It's also, if you've got anything you want us to feature, so if you've had a look around and you say, oh, okay, this fits the theme that you guys are having next week, which again, Rainbow Plasma will talk about later. You can send it in to us and we can have a look at it and possibly feature it on the show, even if it's not yours. If it's somebody else's, that's fine. And we also have some social media accounts, which I guess Flutterguy will talk about since he runs them.
We have a Facebook page, which is Cutie Art Crusaders on Facebook, so facebook.com/Cutie Art Crusaders. You can go there and like it. And we've gotten, I think it's up to 100 likes or something like that, which is phenomenal. We also have a Twitter account, which is @CutieArtCrusade. And there you can find pretty much all of the most up-to-date information. Like if we're having technical issues on the stream or anything like that, we'll post it there.
Yeah. Okay, so one last thing before we go. We mentioned last week that we announced we were having an OC episode coming up in which you guys could submit art specifically for, and that we're going to be using your art specifically for. So over the last week, I've been looking at how we're going to be doing this and how it's all going to be run, and I decided instead of trying to say it all right now in the middle of a podcast that's already running an hour long, we would do it badly every single week and people would be confused. So what we did was, or what I did actually, was I made a journal post on our DeviantArt account. So again, that was deviantart.com/cutieartcrusaders. I made a journal post there. And so go to that page. If you want to submit stuff, it has all of the information about when the episodes are, what they're going to be about, what you can submit for, the rules and the guidelines for kind of stuff like that, the instructions on how to submit, things like that. And you can also use that comment section to ask us questions in case you're confused about, say, can I submit something that I already made? And we're like, try not to. But so that's the journal. You can go. That'll be in the description if you're on YouTube. I'll try to post it in the chat if you're watching this live. But just head over to our DeviantArt page and head over to the journals, and you should be able to find it there. Make sure you look at that before you submit stuff to us, because we're getting some stuff from Pony Creator, and that is not what we're going for. So yeah, please don't send us Pony Creator stuff.
Yeah.
we're just going to roll our eyes and move on. Not that your OC is badly designed, but we're looking for pieces of art that we can feature that also have good OCs and blah de blah de blah, stuff like that. Anyways, that journal will give you all the information. So we're going to stop talking about it. We're going to mention it each week, but we're going to stop going so in depth about it. And we look forward to what everyone is going to be sending in the coming weeks.
Definitely.
Yep.
All right. Well, that is everything for us this week. This is episode 31, right? I think I got that right.
Yes.
Thank you, Cosmic Unicorn, for coming on again. You are a wonderful guest.
Oh, you're welcome.
And everyone should go check her out, of course, because she's got some fantastic pieces of art, many that we couldn't get to because we wanted to talk to her about more theoretical things. But trust me, she backs it up. There's some great stuff on there.
Yep. Her art and her critiques are an awesome place to find things to help you learn.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you guys for watching, whether or not you're on the live stream or on YouTube. We love you all the same. My name is Rainbow Plasma.
I'm Burned01.
I'm Flutterguy317.
I'm Picky Dash.
I am Cosmic Unicorn.
And we'll see you guys next week.
Bye. Bye. All. Bye.
Bye. Hello and welcome to the 9th spoiler cast for the Cutie Art Crusaders. We're covering the episode 11 of season 3, Just for Sidekicks. I am your host, Flutterguy317, and today I'm joined by...
Burned01, the Rambling Man.
And Rainbow Plasma. The Rambling Man? I don't know.
The Hockey Man?
The Canadian.
Let's go with that.
You're breaking the fourth wall. They're not supposed to know I'm watching hockey.
Secrets. Okay. Anyway.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Pinky Dash couldn't be here. He had things to do, and his internet was derping. So
Yeah, his internet was really bad today. It's too bad.
Standard Australian joke.
Okay.
boxing kangaroos.
Yes.
You're like running it into the ground now.
It's
like
fantastic.
as an aficionado of running jokes into the ground, you are officially running it into the ground.
What? The boxing
We need
kangaroo?
something new for PD.
Something with wombats.
Thank you. See, look, wombat. Now that's creativity.
Yeah.
Next joke you make about Australia has to have wombats in it.
I don't know a thing about wombats though.
All right.
Anyhow,
Anyways,
so this episode
didn't have wombats.
did not have wombats. No. It was very Spike centric, but it was also Burned. I think you put it before we started recording. It was very pet centric or sidekick centric.
It was a pet episode.
Yeah. They hadn't had that since season 2, so it was awesome.
Yeah.
The episode was really pleasing to me.
Yeah.
I don't like Spike.
we finally got some closure on Pee-wee
Yeah.
at the beginning, which was nice.
Like, I complained relentlessly our last spoiler cast about the lack of continuity, and whine, complain. And then whined a little bit about Discord, but
Yeah, you
this
complain a lot.
episode, like, there was the freaking continuity. There was more than enough. Like, even if it was just
A lot of it.
Spike, like cuddling the thing or whatever, but I mean, it actually had, like, a beginning and end, and, like, him returning the friggin' bird, whatever his name is, to its parents.
Pee-wee.
Pee-wee's parents.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh, like, that was more than any brony could ever ask for, and, like, if you were unhappy with that, then you should
Yeah, no,
reconsider.
it was definitely like enough closure to be like, look, we're not gonna bring it back suddenly. So here's the reason why he hasn't been around. You know, it's a post explanation.
Yeah.
You know, so
And, like, the whole return, like, reuniting the dude with his parents, that was awesome.
makes sense to me.
And
Yeah.
all
I
the
love
He stole
how-
the egg, didn't he?
pictures were adorable. Like, it was the point of to be a pet-centered episode. There was a lack of continuity there, and they connected it and continuity. This episode
Yeah, so,
was
like, this is the reason
amazing
why.
for continuity.
I
was
love
great.
how Twilight got upset at Pee-wee in one of those photos.
Yeah. Photos are cute for sure.
Yeah.
Who's
I
taking
know
the photos though?
this season there's been like a lot of, I don't want to call it pandering, but there's a lot of like,
Oh no, it's pandering.
yeah, there's a lot of fan ideas that have been introduced into the show. But I mean, that's not a bad thing.
No.
Because I mean, if we're thinking about the ideas and saying, "Oh, hey, this would be really awesome if they did this," and then they did that,
They
it's-
did it.
Yeah.
Like, all the fans and all the bronies were just like, oh my god, I wish they did this. And they basically, when they were making the season, were like, what should we do to please these fans and please people who like our show and enjoy our show? And they set out to make a show and straight up pander. And, like, that's more than any brony could ask for. Like, what should we do? Well, people want to see Discord come back. People want to do this, want to say that, blah, blah. And they had everything, and I thought it was awesome. Like, sure, I wish they did some things differently than they did in the season, but they still did them, and I think that's what's important, and that's what I've come to terms with.
yeah,
Well, the thing is, like, there's a difference between. Look, at all points in these episodes, I think that the people who were writing the show and coming up with the concepts of the show sat down and said, here's a list of the concepts that we want to explore this season, or other people want us to explore this season, and let's build episodes around them.
Definitely.
And I think that's perfectly fine. But there comes a point where certain episodes are done so well that you could not tell that the episode was built around
Yeah,
this
I'll
one
give you
central idea.
Yeah.
I like to point out that as much as I don't like the character of Trixie, I thought the Trixie episode was done in such a good way that there's no way they just said, Trixie, let's figure something out. Like, that episode was very well done.
Yeah.
The thing that there are two things that I don't like about this episode. First of all, the more and more I see of Spike, I just don't like him. Honestly, as a character, he's just like, every single time I see him, it's just like, okay, like, can you get someone else on the screen? Like, I'd like to focus on them more. It's not that he's like, he annoys me or anything. It's just like, I'm bored of him.
It's
Maybe
like,
it's
what,
me.
his third
Maybe it's me
episode?
maybe it's me being like 19 and like he's acting like a kid. So it's like, just get it. Like, I'd rather see a cute pet or the ponies that I actually enjoy. You know.
yeah.
Anyway, so that was one aspect. I'll get into that a little bit more detail later if we have
Well,
time.
in
But
argument against that, I kind of like when they have a character who's like kind of the opposite or role, or like a minor character that kind of changes feel in the show. Like, yeah, he has that annoying kid feature and stuff, but I think that's nice. I think it's somewhat of an important quality of the show, even if it's something for some people to hate or dislike. It's there, and like at the end of the episode, he came to terms and he grew up a little, and like
Yeah.
in the future, if they ever make a nod to that, to where he grows up and matures, then tip of the hat, you know.
okay, cool. I was just saying, with the actual point of that was an aside. The actual point of my statement was the thing that I didn't like about this episode is I felt like it looked like they built the episode around something that they wanted to show us. And it's the same thing as last week's episode with Discord. I felt like last week's episode was like, let's put Discord in something, and then they built an episode around it. And by the same reason, they said this episode, let's bring back the pets, and let's build an episode around it.
Okay. I mean, maybe that's not pandering to us. I mean, maybe that's just like, even as far as making a good cartoon, having continuity. Like, they in the first or the second season, they gave each character their own little respective pet, and like that was the thing. And it was like, it would just be, what's the word? Not good if they didn't like actually bring back each.
Use
It's
your
not
words.
a continuity.
Yeah,
it's
right?
not a continuity error, Bernd. What I'm trying to say is there's a difference between making it obvious that they're just saying, okay, we're going to bring these guys back because just for continuity's sake, and saying, here's an episode, and they're also in here. A lot of the continuity throwbacks that are in the background are done in that way, where they're saying, like, these are just extra things. But I just feel like this episode, and I liked the episode, and I thought it was very cute, and I enjoyed seeing the animals, and in no way am I saying, oh, they shouldn't have brought the animals back. I enjoy the continuity. But it's not an issue of continuity. It's an issue of, I looked at the episode at the end and said, there are many variables in this that could have changed, and none of them really mattered. Like, all that mattered was the pets was in them, and then they just threw something together. You know, Spike was just, we've seen that lesson before. It was an old lesson. They just made an episode about pets and threw some stuff in around it. That's what I felt like this episode was.
Yeah, I mean, I could kind of see that, but at the same time, like, you do need some filler episodes.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But it was more apparent to me in this episode than any other episode. This was more filler than any other episode, and so far this season has not been any filler. And in a 13 episode season, I think it's a bit disappointing to see very obvious filler.
I don't feel that way. I feel that's wrong to say, and I disagree with that point. I'm gonna say I personally.
What's wrong to say?
But like, just to say that it feels like filler, I just disagree with that point. Like, I thought it was a great episode. Not just like, I know we both agree that we liked the episode, but I mean, not in the term that it was filler, and that it was an episode where there was a strict point in like the whole arc of things, having their pets, and it was an important point that they wanted to bring back in, and it wasn't filler. It was something that I personally feel needed to bring back in, and was awesome to bring back in. And I thought it made for a great episode, regardless. Like, Spike's been featured twice in this season, and like he fit nicely in the narrative and story that they were telling, but I still felt that it wasn't filler. It was a perfectly good episode standalone, especially everything in it. Like, yes, it was a similar, what is the word I'm looking for? Moral that Spike learned in the end, but I never got the feeling of pandering that I got in the Discord episode. I was overall pleased at the feel and everything of this episode. I guess I just disagree with the notion that this just seemed like filler or just a random episode where they shoved something in. It was more like there's an important aspect to our world here, which is the pets, and then we.
But I'm not saying the pets were anything to do with filler. I was just saying that, and I think a lot of it's centered around Spike, because Spike was not an interesting character in this episode. He was someone who has now repeated a moral choice, and that's not like, oh, he's a bad character or anything, because whatever, like, he's a child and children don't learn after mistakes and they do a bunch of stuff and they're greedy, and like I get that, but it was just like this episode was centered around Spike, and it's a combination of me not like, I don't find Spike entertaining, and then just like all of it was all of the parts with Spike in it that had like all the parts that had to do with Spike, I feel like could have. Like I feel like that was kind of thrown together. I don't think the pets were thrown together. I think they were done very well, and each pet had its own thing in the foreground and in the background, and the continuity was fantastic. But maybe it just all stems from the fact that I don't necessarily like Spike that much. And it was the same thing with Spike at Your Service. It was just like, but even that one felt more like this is a new thing with Spike, whereas this was, I feel like it's just the same old with this episode.
Yeah, but I feel Spike as a character is kind of a necessary evil, so to speak, because everyone's always this perfect, nice pony and nice character and nice whatever, and they in a few episodes take their little personality opposite, but that's a personality aspect. As far as like being a bad person or a bad pony, so to speak, Spike kind of fits that role, and he gets a lot of hate for that, but he's really the only person who's not a villain who kind of fits that personality that some people may not like or disconnect with. And I think he's the necessary evil, so to speak.
I like him better as the straight man. He played the straight man to Twilight in season 1 and I think in season 2 as well, where Twilight was, bookworm and kind of, gets excited about things, and Spike would kind of roll his eye. I really like the dynamic between Twilight and Spike. Was it No, it was Spike at Your Service, where at the very end, he comes back and you see them together and you're like, oh, they're really good together. But like, to me, like, that's Spike outside of Spike and Twilight is like, I have not liked a Spike. Like, it's not like I haven't liked a Spike-centric episode, but there's been no standout Spike-centric episodes, and I just feel like this is the same. To me, this is a standout pet episode. The pet stole the show.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, see, the thing is, like, with this episode, I think Spike has kind of grown up since, like, as a character, has kind of grown up slightly since Spike at Your Service, because, or even like since Aloysius, or however you pronounce it, just because like in the beginning when he's making the cake and stuff like that, and he makes the remark about who could have taken his gems, he realizes that it's him, whereas like in the past, I don't think he would have. And you can definitely see like growth throughout the episode, because he finally realizes that, he has to be responsible. So there is, it might be repeating the same lesson over and over again, but it ties it around an interesting story. I don't know. I enjoyed it.
I suppose. I just feel like the interesting part of the story was not Spike. The interesting part was there's all these stories, and then the interesting part was there's pets with them, and I loved it, and I loved the pets, but like I just feel like the general story was not that interesting. Anyways, let's move on to like the not the plot stuff. Like let's move on to like some of the stuff we love. You know what I loved?
Mm-hmm.
I loved everything with Rainbow Dash in this episode, and that's
Yeah,
not even
Rainbow
a Rainbow
Dash is
Dash
great.
bias. That just like the two things that happened in this episode were freaking adorable. They had the tank licking her face, and she had a blushy, scrunchy, licky face, and then she does that like quick like snuzzle thing while nobody's looking. Both those things were freaking adorable.
Yep.
and I want gifs of both of them.
Yep.
Get on it, internet.
I think they've already done. Go on Reddit. They're there. Yeah.
There's a lot of that awesome stuff in the episode. The whole time.
Yeah.
It was just
Well-made
like-
gifs. Yeah.
As far as theme-wise and, like, executing the cuteness-wise and character interaction, especially with the main six, like, I thought that was really well played, especially with all their pets.
Yeah.
Really well done.
Yeah, like AJ and Winona, like everyone had their own pets and had their own personality. I actually love the way that Angel was portrayed in this episode, because Angel's always kind of the antagonist, but there was such a deep characterization of him that he's an antagonist even when he's with Fluttershy. But when he's away from Fluttershy, he's like, you know, I need to get back to like mommy.
Yeah.
And I thought that was such a cool character like thing to add, because we haven't really seen a tremendous amount of that before. But he was like desperate to get back to Fluttershy. I thought that was really cute and really deep for his character.
Yeah, well, I mean, it fit nicely into the story about how...
For sure.
Yeah.
What was it? Is that Spike was treating him wrong, and, you know, he wanted to go back to Fluttershy, whatnot. Moral.
Yeah. I loved the styling whenever like Angel would do something bad and Spike would get angry and go like Angel.
Yeah.
Like it was kind of reminiscent of like I don't know, maybe like a Samurai Jack or
Kind of look.
something like that. Yeah.
I can kind of see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you lost me there.
What is it? Oh, yeah, no, your point about how Spike played the antagonist is awesome, because he's, like, not really a villain, but he was constantly the one causing trouble and the one
Bunny.
blah, blah, blah. Bunny, excuse me.
Bunny.
Angel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Sorry. But yeah, no, he was an awesome villain-esque person in this episode, and he fit perfectly, because everyone has, in the, like, fandom seems to have this, like, hatred towards him, like, he's this evil being, and so it was nice for them, because he fit that role, and he stuck with it. And then, but I mean, he's still somewhat of a nice character at the end when he kind of like made up with Spike there.
Yeah.
Angel plays a really like I mentioned. Spike plays a good straight man, and straight man means like if there's a joke going on, they're the person to bring it back down to the reality, kind of drag him back down to reality. Angel occasionally plays a quite nice straight man to Fluttershy. God damn it! Almost just said your name again. Angel plays a really good straight man to Fluttershy.
I'm
Like
just
in like
so
the first few
irresistible.
episodes where you know, Fluttershy would be like, they were talking about the ticket, I believe, and she was like, "Why are you cleaning my house?" "Oh no, we're just doing some spring cleaning." And then the Angel like looks at her and she's like, "No, we're doing it for the ticket." I think that straight man attitude works really well. Angel in general, like, it's so you can't help but love him. No matter what he does, you can't help but love him.
If Pinky Dash were here, he would.
No, but there's like he does these things to like Fluttershy, and you're like, wow, what a jerk. And then he does something, and you're like, yeah, but they really love each other. Like,
Yeah. Like
at the end of the day, like all of this, like after this episode, you can't like all this episode, he was just being a giant jerk, and then at the end of the episode, you're just like, yeah, you know, but you can't.
you
help
want to
but
give
love him.
Fluttershy credit, but it's like again, maybe sometimes Fluttershy gives people a little bit too much credit, but that's part of her character. So Angel Bunny fits in that zone, I guess.
Yeah, he has his place. I'm not gonna say I like him, but
I think he's an awesome character, but
he's a good character. But
because he is kind of a caretaker.
Yeah.
My favorite image of him is when the Cutie Art Crusaders go knocking on Fluttershy's door in Ponyville Confidential. It's like, hey, is Fluttershy home? And they look in, and it's Angel Bunny sitting there straight faced with Fluttershy in the background, just bawling her eyes out. and
Yeah.
slams the door in their face. It's like she's
Yeah,
not
it's great.
okay. Like that. That's my favorite embodiment of his character,
Yeah.
Hmm.
if it's any.
I'm really glad they brought Tank back though. Actually,
and it's freaking
moving on
magical
to the
flying machine.
yeah, I know.
Yeah, they made the flying machine. It was run by magic.
Yeah.
Cool.
Also,
Obviously, it was some sort of magic connected to him because it only worked when it was. I don't know. It's just like little touches like that. That like, look. At the end of the day, we're watching a show about little ponies. Like, you don't have to be like, oh, how does that helicopter device work? But at the same time, like, it's that extra effort. It's the extra effort to be like, look, there is something. It's like, oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
yeah,
For a show and episode about magical prancing ponies and their cute little pets and the annoying little dragon, I really enjoyed it. Like, as far as like overall opinions, I think my overall opinion was I really enjoyed it and I thought it was a great episode to add to the season, and it really got over it made me get over some of the nitpicks that I've had for the season so far. But what do you guys think?
yeah. I mean, I enjoyed it. It's not my favorite of the season, but I thought it was pretty good. Yeah, I don't know.
We have 13 episodes, and we've had 2 Spike episodes, and that annoys me.
Well, it's like in previous seasons we maybe had 1 per season, so I don't know.
I'm a huge advocate for what they've been doing all season, which is more of the main 6 in many scenarios.
Yeah.
And yes, they showed up in this one, and that's great. But there's been 2 Spike-centric episodes so far, and as someone who is not a very big fan of Spike, that disappoints me especially because this is a shortened season.
Well, I don't know. I've enjoyed when they brought him back in. And even if they're like
And I haven't.
bringing the pets was like back in was their agenda, like we really need to bring the pets back in episode. He fit the role for bringing the pets back in really well, especially in that whole story scenario that went down. In my opinion.
CMC could have done it.
They did a little bit,
Yeah.
and their part in the episode was awesome.
I know, but they could have been.
Yeah,
I'm
like
just saying the
straight
focus
up,
could have
they could have
shifted
been
to
the person,
anyone.
the
Yep.
people who got the whatever, and all the junk went down, and blah blah blah.
Yep.
Yep.
And another moral.
Skydiving cutie marks.
I think if you look back at this episode, you could have replaced 90% of the parts of Spike with the CMC and sure, come up with some sort of other convoluted way
I'm sure they had a good
of
reason
them
for
ignoring.
using Spike though versus the CMC.
There's
I'd
been a
like
lot
to
of
give him a little bit of
CMC
credit,
episodes.
I just,
There has,
just
but
it's
yeah.
a personal thing. I don't like Spike because I haven't liked his episodes, and so I don't know why you're laughing at me. I'm allowed to dislike things. Last week you
I know. It's funny because I'm just trying to defend that I enjoyed Spike in the episode. So it's just funny that you
don't laugh at me when I say I don't like it.
Why? It's funny.
Because you're invalidating my opinion.
Sorry, man. I didn't mean to. I just thought it was funny.
What?
Well, no, it's
What?
funny because the way that people were ranting about it, and not just you, but us as well. I guess.
I just don't like Spike. That's that's it.
Yeah.
Cool.
No, that's totally understandable because he's been put in a lot of situations that have not been favorable for his character
Yeah,
development. at
that
all.
makes sense to me.
So
I could totally see how the episodes have not been geared towards making him the most favorite of characters, but
yeah,
I don't see it.
I think there's a couple of characters on MLP that do better as like secondary or tertiary characters. Maybe even Applejack could be considered. I mean, I love Applejack to death, but she does a lot better when there's an episode that's not focused on her, I think.
That's an excellent comparison because her episode-centric episodes have been, her character-centric episodes have not been that favorable to her. Mm-hmm. Everybody's kind of had a favorable character-centric episode, but I don't think Applejack has kind of had that. But she plays a fantastic older sister to the CMC. Mm-hmm. She plays a fantastic kind of voice of reason. And by the same token, I think Spike plays a fantastic other half of Twilight.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he did an awesome job in the episode 1 and 2 of the season.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, episodes 1 and 2 were fantastic for him.
Yeah, I loved every second that he was in those.
I think it, and I said this when we reviewed. No, not really reviewed, but spoiler casted the Applejack episode. is that like sometimes when you have characters that are front and center, you focus more on their flaws, or at least the writers focus more on their flaws, and
Yeah,
that
for sure.
might not come off as favorable in the long run. But if you have the character as like a secondary or tertiary character or whatever, they're usually helping to mend other characters' flaws. So yeah, that could be what we're seeing here as well.
So I have more than one reason for wanting to keep him in the background. That's all I have to
He's
say
a good
about it.
background character. That he is.
Yeah.
I highly enjoyed this episode. I thought the pets were amazingly done, but I just don't like Spike, and this episode did not change my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's go rewatch the premiere.
I got a hockey game to watch.
Oh yeah, Canadian. All right. Well, thank you for watching our spoiler cast. We don't know why you guys enjoy listening to us, but we'll do it.
Brimming with confidence.
No, but seriously, thank you guys so much. And we will see you again next week. I'm Flutterguy317.
I'm Burned 01.
I'm Rainbow Plasma.
Bye.
Later, guys.
See ya.